Hey guys, my name is Sarah Loveridge. I just gave you a little clip of the culture that I did my research on, and it was the Tahitian dancing, and that particular dance was the Ortera. Just to kind of give you a recap on my research paper, the purpose of my research, and probably most of you as well, was to try to figure out and relate how like their culture dancing or how their dancing reflects their culture. And so choosing this topic for me was interesting because I just actually had the opportunity not to go to Tahiti, but to go to Hawaii. And I love like just kind of the French Polynesian islands and their dancing. So that's why I picked the Tahitian dancing. During my research, I came up with like three kind of main reasons why their culture is reflected in their dancing. And so I'll just kind of recap those three main points. The first one is they reflected their culture through dancing and defining their religion and custom beliefs in their dancing. When dancing for the purpose of spirituality, like their religious dances they were only performed by a specifically trained group and only on solemn occasions. Great mass dances could hardly be performed except at like fixed times when all people were assembled. They also had informal dancing and required only a small gathering and could be given at any time. During that particular time, many of the spiritual beliefs and customs were dedicated to like their god, or in the Tahitian culture, particularly the rain and fertility god. Living on the island, the society could not easily recruit newcomers, and so the Tahitians felt like it was their responsibility to promote reproduction, and then with the intent to maintain the island's population. So therefore, most of their customs and beliefs were centered around sexuality, which was indeed central to their culture. And as a result, in many of their spiritual dances, you can see that the religious dancing toward their gods reflected their culture. The second reason their dancing reflected their culture was the example of that particular dance you guys just saw, the Otera. This dance was intended to communicate a particular occupation or gender role, and it was first only performed by the male gender, but eventually evolved to both genders performing the dance. The dance is performed at a fast rhythm of beating drums. There's no singing or words or music, but sometimes has shouts or call outs expressed by the male dancers. This dance is sometimes also known as the Tahitian drum dance. The men are arranged in a long row with the women opposite from them, and the male dancers' leg movements are centered around like their upper thighs, with a basic movement of them like flapping in and out, their knees in and out. The basic step for the women is to swing her hips from side to side while the heel of the opposite leg slightly shifts off the ground. This move is repeated at a high speed to create the women's rhythmic hip shaking or circle, and then accompanied with their bottom part of their movement, their arms are added. Along with both the male and female leg movements, arms are most often used to reenact the daily occupations of life. So, for example, the men could imitate war or like sailing on a boat, and the women could imitate combing their hair and nurturing their child. The last reason why I feel like the Tahitian dancing reflects their culture is um, their dancing allows themselves to express their feelings towards one another or may even indicate personal feelings about themselves. There's a particular dance in the Tahitian culture called the Tamaru. It's a dance often used to convey this message. So according to like the Tahitians themselves, the dance can imply, quote, I am young, healthy, and attractive. I know who I am and what I am, and I'm happy with myself. So the movement of this dance, in sense of shape and form, is described as the men keep their feet flat on the ground with heels together. They open and shut their legs in a flapping movement. The women rotate their hips rapidly. Both men and women keep their upper bodies motionless, trying to keep the main attraction on the lower part of the body. The tempo of the music is continuous, and it increases up to the point where Only the most experienced and fittest dancers can keep their shaking up. So, depending on the performers and exactly how the performer performs the dance, the sexual innuendo may be more or less obvious. So, this particular dance movement reflects social context of the Polynesian culture, which in the late 1700s, like I talked about, was centered around sexuality. So it also provides the sense of worth or how they felt about themselves. So that's kind of a recap on my research paper. I definitely feel like I was successful in finding that their dancing does reflect their culture. So for my closed movement analysis for the Ortera dance, I found some of the major elements of dance with body, energy, shape, space, and time. I kind of described it like this: the female dancer controls her upper body movement with flowing arms swaying back and forth, and her lower body with fast shaking hip movement, while smiling and subduing the male. The male squats down in a lower position with feet together and knees pointing out. He then begins to flap them in and out at a rapid pace. As the dancers sway in perfect unison to the fast paced tempo of the bass drum, they make it seem effortless. Their beautiful, elaborate costumes help enhance the movement, making it hard to take your eyes off the dancer. Some of the more specific descriptions are like body, their legs, arm and spine, or head and torso are all being moved simultaneously. The energy is strong and direct. The shape is spreading, enclosing, rising, and sinking. The space is facing like towards the audience, towards the other dancers, toward one particular person. The levels are high, medium, and low. Formations are like lines and circles. And then time is fast, the increasing tempo, decreasing tempo, repetitive, and pausing and stopping. So I feel like all of the closed movement analysis and this particular dance is significant to the culture because they're trying to fulfill the function of really why people dance. So some of the reasoning why I feel like this is important to their culture is its community involvement. It shows symbolic gestures. It's an imitation of a style and forms of a social group. It exhibits contemporary values of the community, expresses the ideas, feelings, and beliefs of maybe a particular individual. And then it also enhances and controls interpersonal behavior according to like maybe their religious beliefs or their communal standards. So, and I also feel like it preserves the spirituality or the spiritual values of that society. And so I sort of feel like all of these are significant to everybody because this is really, whether you're a Tahitian or not, this is really why we all dance. So, as we've studied the evolution of dance, I feel like the Tahitian culture and their dancings fulfill most of the six different dance forms in one way or another. And because I didn't particularly pick an exact dance of their culture, I'd like it to incorporate their culture dancing into five of the six forms of dance that we've talked about. The first being the spiritual dance form. So, I know that some of its characteristics are repetitive movements and have full community involvement. The Tahitians, Ortera definitely has repetitive movement, and it also has community involvement. They also use different dancing and different dances for like their culture and worshiping. So I feel like that fulfills the spiritual dance form. Second, the classical dance form. The Tahitian culture carries similar characteristics by adding like elaborate costumes, which enhances the meaning of the dance, and then the symbolic gestures that they add to their dancing, and the complex rhythms that require like training to perform and not really just winging it on your own. The Tahitians use like grass like skirts and big headpieces, and they usually use the costumes to increase their performance and then like enhance the movement. So with the grass skirts, it kind of enhances the hip shake and kind of makes that movement a little bit more sharp and bold. The third one is the folk dance form. So I think the Tahitian dancing has similar characteristics of folk dance, including movements that are often mimics or symbolize work patterns. And like I talked about before, the role of men and women can like be clearly differentiated, and their style variation and movement become identified with like the specific population. So I feel like that it fulfills the folk dance form as well. The fourth being the social dance form. I think this is actually when we talked a little bit about this particular group of dancing was in the social dance category. The Tahitians incorporate this by interacting with each other, and the bodies of the two dancers almost always face each other with like special attention to the dancers, and sometimes they're touching and sometimes they're not touching. Um, the function of this form is to enhance like interpersonal behavior according to like the community standards, the communal standards. So I believe the Tahitians' culture reflects this by expressing their social behavior. Maybe that once wasn't allowed. And the fifth one is the personal dance form. So the function of this particular dance form is to express like ideas, feelings, and beliefs of like a particular individual. And I sort of feel like all dancing does this. The Tahitian culture like has created their dancing like with selective and like purposeful movement. Um, but their dancing can be like community or individually expressed of an idea, a feeling, or a belief. And then it's so important to them that they feel like they publicly need to perform it. And so I feel like it fulfills the personal dance form as well. With that being said about the Tahitian culture, I feel like I'm experiencing personal dance form every day. The function of like personal dance form is like to express your ideas and your feelings and your beliefs. And every day in some way or another, I feel like I'm doing that, whether I'm like saying hi to my neighbor as I drive by, um, or as I'm like doing dishes or laundry or with or without music. I just feel like you experience dance all the time. I have two daughters that love like to dance, and so I'm constantly watching them dance um, and expressing themselves in that given moment. I also have a cute little 5-year-old boy who loves to dance, and he will find like any moment at any point that if he can dance, he will. And so I feel like I experienced that whole personal dance form by watching my kids express themselves personally in the way that they dance. I feel like we experience personal dance form through any kind of um, like media in our life, social media, TV, music. So I definitely would like to incorporate it more in my life. I love watching like videos that are out there of dancing. I really, really enjoyed the Alicia Keys No One music video that we got to watch this last module, and just how he just moved the way he like was feeling at that moment, or even though it didn't really have much to maybe do with the song, at some point he connected with the the music to allow his body to move in a way that he was feeling, and I really love that. I feel like no matter how maybe dumb you think you feel when you're dancing, it just makes you smile and it makes you happy. And I know for me, it makes me a happier person. So I've loved learning so much throughout this course, and I've enjoyed to see like how my definition of dance has changed. And yeah, thanks.